Hello, this is Dr. Neal Barnard speaking to you from Washington, D.C. I'm delighted to be part of this important conference. Today I'll be speaking about the power of nutrition for health. Good foods have the power to prevent serious diseases, but they also have the power to return us to health when disease has struck. I'd like to talk about all of these things today. To me, the page in nutrition really turned in 1990. That was the year that a young doctor named Dean Ornish looked to see, not can we just prevent heart disease, but can we actually reverse this process in people who had existing heart disease. What he did is he wanted to see if we could make that ugly looking artery that you see at the bottom here, which is filled with atherosclerotic plaque, and make it look more like that clean artery at the top. And the way he did this was not with drugs and not with surgery, but with a simple experimental program of lifestyle changes. First of all, a vegetarian diet. Now, why would one want to use a vegetarian diet for heart patients? Well, because animal products are the only source of animal fat and the only source of cholesterol for all practical purposes, and plant products are the only source of healthy fiber. So when a person follows a plant-based diet with no animal products at all, you're getting away from the cholesterol and animal fat. All right. He also asked everyone to take a half-hour walk every day, to manage stress through yoga or meditation, and to avoid tobacco. And that was the whole program. No surgery, no medication changes. And the results were astounding. After a year, the average person's total cholesterol level had dropped 24%. Their bad cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, had dropped 37%. That's the kind of change that we expect from medications, but this was done with diet and lifestyle changes. The average person lost 10 kilograms, that's 22 pounds, but what really made headlines was everyone had an angiogram. That's a special X-ray of the heart, and it shows the tiny trickle of blood that gets through to the heart muscle. And it turned out that the arteries were actually opening up so much that you could see a measurable difference in 82% of patients in the first year. So let me show you what this actually looks like. This is the angiogram of a physician who had serious heart problems. He was at the Cleveland Clinic, and he had what's called a diseased distal left anterior descending artery. It should look nice and open, but as you can see, it's crinkly and narrowed. He could not have a stent, and he could not tolerate statin drugs that are usually used for cholesterol lowering. So instead, he started a low-fat vegan diet. When I say vegan, I mean a person who eats no animal products at all. And after 32 months, this is what his artery looked like. As you can see, the body has the capacity to heal. My research team was very taken with the results like this. So we wanted to see what would a diet like that work like with people who didn't have heart disease, but just wanted to lose weight and get healthier. We brought in 64 participants. They were all moderately to severely overweight, and half of them went on a low-fat vegan diet. The other half began what I'm going to call a conventional diet, eating less meat, less dairy products. Now, there were no calorie limits. They could eat as much food as they wanted to. There was no change in exercise, and we didn't give them food. They had to make food themselves, eat at restaurants if they preferred, but they took care of that. And the foods that we encouraged the vegan group to choose from were in 4 groups: fruits, grains, vegetables, legumes. When I say legumes, I mean beans, peas, lentils, and the foods that are made from them. For example, soybeans are made into tofu or tempeh or miso. These would all be in the legume group. Now, a typical day's meals in this research study were things that seemed quite normal to a Western palate. Pancakes, oatmeal porridge with cinnamon and raisins, a vegetable chili, or basically a vegetable stew. And if they had a linguine pasta noodle, instead of being topped with meat sauce, it would be topped with artichoke hearts and mushrooms. Now, they lost a lot of weight. Your average person lost 5.8 kilograms in 14 weeks in the vegan group and only 3.8 kilograms in the conventional group. So that was good. But what was more important was the long-term results. The people on the conventional diet regained the weight that they lost. The people on the vegan diet kept losing, and in fact, not only were they thinner at 1 year than at the beginning, but they were thinner at 2 years than at 1 year. So this isn't a diet to just lose weight temporarily. This is a diet change that allows people to get the weight off and keep it off permanently. Let me show you why people lost weight. Part of it was that when you're eating high fiber foods and you're getting away from fat, you're avoiding a lot of calories and you're filling up on foods that really don't have much in the way of calories. But there's another reason, and you see it here. This is a cell. Call it a muscle cell. Muscle cells have mitochondria. Mitochondria are burners that can convert fuel to energy. And if your mitochondria are working right, your cells have the energy that they need. Here's the problem. You don't have only mitochondria in your cells. You also have fat. The fat in muscle cells is referred to as intramyocellular lipid. It just means fat in muscle cells. And if you eat a fatty diet, that means if you're eating meat or cheese or greasy foods, the fat content of your cell starts to rise, as you see here. You see the fat building up inside the cell. So the message of this is that fat in your cells slows down your after-meal calorie burn. All of that fat inside the cell interferes with mitochondrial action. The more fat there is inside your cell because of fat you ate, the more trouble your mitochondria have in doing their job. They can't burn calories. What if you go on a vegan diet? Well, there's no animal fat in a vegan diet, is there? And if you keep oils low, there's not much of any kind of fat. And so look what happens to the fat inside your cell. It starts to dissipate, to go away. And when that goes away, your mitochondria are free to work again. That means your metabolism rises. Your cells are burning calories faster than they were before. And that's as a result of getting the fat out of your cells. Now, to show you what this is like over the long run, the Adventist Health Study 2 included almost 61,000 participants in the United States. They were all over the age of 30, and researchers looked at how heavy they were. It turns out that Adventists, it's a largely North American religion in which people are very health conscious. They almost all avoid tobacco, most avoid alcohol, and many are vegetarian. So it sets up a natural experiment where you can compare various diet patterns. In this graph, you see body mass index, or BMI. BMI is just your weight, adjusted for how tall you are. And we'd like to see it below 25 for good health. As you can see, the group on the left, these are non-vegetarians. In other words, meat eaters. They had a BMI of 28.8. That's in the overweight range. And the group next to them, called semi-vegetarians, who were people who ate meat but less than once a week, they were only slightly thinner at 27.3. The third group, pesco-vegetarians, they ate fish but no other meat, and they were slightly slimmer at 26.3, but still overweight on average. The fourth group, the green bar, these are lacto-ovo vegetarians, so they're consuming milk, lacto, eggs, ovo, but no meat of any kind. They're thinner still, but look at that fifth line, the blue line. These are people following a vegan diet, and as you can see, not only are they the slimmest of all the groups, they're actually the only group that is firmly in the middle of the healthy weight range. Now, this was published by the American Diabetes Association because the change in diabetes rates as you go from one group to the next follows the very same pattern. The people who follow a meaty diet or even a diet including fish have not only much heavier, but they also are much more likely to have diabetes compared to a person who follows a vegan diet. So going from beef to fish or pork to fish, that's not much of a change. Going from a meaty diet of any kind to a completely vegan diet, that's where the power really comes in. So our research team here in Washington, D.C. was funded by the US government to test a vegan diet for type 2 diabetes. We compared a plant-based diet to a conventional diabetes diet. And let me describe these diets to you. The conventional diet required people to limit calories, to keep carbohydrate fairly steady, and to limit bad fat. That means saturated fat and trans fats. The plant-based intervention was three things: no animal products, minimize oils. In other words, prepare foods by steaming or boiling or baking rather than frying. And also favoring foods with a low glycemic index. Although that sounds like a complicated term, it's actually very simple. White bread causes your blood sugar to rise, but rye bread or pumpernickel bread cause the blood sugar to rise much more gently. So white bread, because it causes a sharp rise in blood sugar, is called a high glycemic index foods, but rye and pumpernickel are lower glycemic index foods. So the intervention we were testing was no animal products, minimizing oils, and favoring the healthy carbohydrates. So to cut to the chase, what we track is hemoglobin A1C. It's a measure of your blood sugar control over the preceding 3 months or so. The red line here is the conventional group. They did well. They had a drop of about 0.4 absolute percentage points. The blue line is the vegan group. They had a drop in A1C that was 3 times greater, more than 1.2 absolute percentage points. And I have to say, if you had a medication that was that powerful, that would be something to invest in. The vegan diet turned out to be the best diet ever tested for type 2 diabetes. Now, let me give you an example of a person doing this. Vance was one of our first research participants. When he entered the study, he told us what diabetes meant to him. It meant you could go blind. You could lose a foot or a leg. You could end up on dialysis for kidney disease. Vance's father died at age 30. Vance was 31 when he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and he was in his late 30s when he came to see us. But over the first year of the study, he lost 60 pounds. His doctor stopped his diabetes medications, and his hemoglobin A1C dropped from 9.5 to 5.3. And 5.3 means you don't have diabetes. 5.3 is a normal A1C. We were surprised to learn that diabetes can go away for all intents and purposes. While that was surprising at the time, since that time we've seen this happen over and over and over again. And the way to make it happen is with a healthy vegan diet, minimizing oils, and choosing the healthiest foods. Now, a meta-analysis shows the results of every study that has ever looked at a particular variable. In this case, plant-based diets and A1C. And if you are not familiar with a forest plot, every line is a different research study. And here you can see there are 5 studies. And if the little black box is to the left of that center line, that means that A1C improved. It fell. And as you can see, it fell in every single study. A1C always improves on a plant-based diet. All right, let me show you how it works. And let me ask you to pay careful attention to what I'm going to show you, because I'm about to show you the cause of type 2 diabetes. This is a muscle cell once again. And cells are powered by glucose. Glucose is a simple sugar that can get inside that cell and power it. But the problem is, glucose naturally cannot enter the cell. It tries to, but it can't get through that membrane. To get inside, it needs to go through special channels in the surface of the cell. Those channels are closed. In order to open them, you need a key. And that key is insulin. So the insulin made in your pancreas goes through the bloodstream and arrives at the surface of the cell where it finds a receptor, like this red symbol here. The key, insulin, attaches to that red receptor, just like a key in a lock. And when the key enters, it signals those channels to open up and to let the glucose come inside. And there it is. The glucose easily comes in the cell. That's insulin's action. So what could ever go wrong? Well, what if my dinner looks like this, and my lunch looks like that, and that's my breakfast, and I'm eating a lot of greasy foods? Well, there is a lot of fat in these foods, unfortunately. And that fat that's in the foods you're eating ends up building up in the cells. So the fat molecules build up inside your cells, and as they do build up, then the insulin key no longer works. The key still attaches to the receptor, but it can't open it. It can't open the cells. So the glucose molecules no longer can enter. Well, what's the answer to fix this? To fix this, I'm going to go on a low-fat vegan diet. Vegan means there's no animal fat at all. And if it's low in all kinds of fats, what happens? The fat inside the cell starts to dissipate. It starts to go away. And as the fat goes away from the inside of the cell, the insulin key can work again. And now we can open up those channels and let the glucose come back in the cell. And everybody's happy. Okay, great. So type 2 diabetes starts as insulin resistance, which means fat has built up inside the muscle cells and also the liver cells, stopping insulin from being able to work. On a low-fat vegan diet, you can get the fat out of the cells, you can improve that insulin resistance, and what you discover is that diabetes can improve too, and sometimes even go away. All right, researchers at Yale University did an interesting test in young, healthy people. They asked 26 healthy volunteers to have a glucose tolerance test. That's where you swallow 75 grams of a syrup, and then you see if all of that sugar you're ingesting ends up in the blood and how quickly it goes away. And if it goes away quickly, we call you insulin sensitive. But if that sugar from the syrup you drank stays in the blood for a long time, we're going to call you insulin resistant. So the researchers then looked at the ages of these people, and they were young, late 20s. They were also thin, 60 kilograms and 64 kilograms. These are not heavy people. They also didn't have diabetes. These A1C values are totally normal. Then everyone went to the laboratory and they had an MR spectroscopy, magnetic resonance spectroscopy done. With MR spectroscopy, we can look inside your cells. Let me show you what we found. On this slide, every dot is a person. And this is the amount of intramyocellular lipid that that person had. This is the amount of fat inside their muscle cells. This is the group of normal individuals, and this is the group of insulin-resistant participants. As you can see, those people who were insulin-resistant had much more intramyocellular lipid. In other words, they had much more fat building up inside their muscle cells, causing that insulin resistance. And when we look at their mitochondrial activity, these are the normal people, and these are the people who are insulin resistant. And what we can see is that that fat is causing their mitochondria to not work normally. What's the point? The point is lots of people have a taste for pork or fish or beef or cheese or other greasy foods. Not only does that cause them to gain weight, but the fat in those foods gets into their cells, it slows down their mitochondria, it causes insulin resistance and leads to diabetes. To get away from those foods, to go to an entirely low-fat, healthy vegan diet is to reverse that process. All right, so a healthy diet, fruits, grains, vegetables, legumes, and it's also important to supplement with vitamin B12. You need it for healthy blood cells, and you need it for healthy nerves. So when you prescribe a diet like this, as I do, to patients, they might ask, well, where do you get your protein? Well, the protein requirements are as follows. For a woman, the United States government and many other governments would say she should have about 46 grams of protein every day. For a man, about 56. Well, could I get 46 or 56 grams of protein from plant foods entirely? Well, for many people, that's a good question because they're used to thinking that meat is the source of protein. Vegetables they think of as providing vitamins, and potatoes or rice or noodles are carbohydrate that give you extra calories. If the meat is gone, where do I get my protein? Well, it turns out that vegetables have a lot of protein, and so do other foods. Let me give you an example. Let's say I eat about 2,000 calories a day. That would be pretty typical. Well, if I ate 2,000 calories a day, and as an experiment, all I ate today is going to be broccoli. Not that you would do this, but if you ate nothing but broccoli and you ate 2,000 calories of just broccoli, you would get 146 grams of pure protein. That's a huge amount. What if the next day I do another experiment and all I eat is lentils? Well, I would get 157 grams of protein from 2,000 calories worth of lentils. And other foods are very high in protein too. Now, hopefully you're not only eating broccoli or only eating lentils or only eating corn. But if you eat a mixture of plant-based foods, you'll easily get the 46 or 56 grams of protein that you need in a day. And I might mention that those foods have a bit of a safety margin. People actually can get by, in many cases, on much less protein than that. And plant foods provide more than enough protein for your needs, even if you're a very active person, even if you're an Olympic athlete. Okay, so the next question that sometimes people ask is calcium, we think of as coming from milk or dairy products. If I'm not consuming milk products, will I get calcium? The answer is, sure, of course you will. Cows don't make calcium. Calcium is an element. A cow can't make an element like calcium or any other. Calcium is in the soil, and it goes into the blades of grass, and the cow eats the grass, and so the calcium ends up in the milk, and you absorb about 32% of it. So if you look at other green vegetables that you might eat, hopefully you're not eating grass, they have lots of calcium. Broccoli, collards, kale, mustard greens, Swiss chard, they all have lots and lots of calcium that's highly absorbable. I put spinach here in parentheses because while it's very high in calcium, that calcium is not very absorbable. Now, here are the absorption rates. At the bottom, you'll see milk is about 32% absorption, but look at the top, Brussels sprouts, mustard greens, broccoli, kale, they all are highly absorbable, much more so than milk. The moral of this story, you do need calcium, and you can get it from green leafy vegetables. Make sure they're part of your diet every single day. I mentioned vitamin B12. Let's say a few more things about it. You need vitamin B12 for healthy nerves and healthy blood. And it's not made by animals or by plants. It's made by bacteria. And many people will speculate that before the advent of modern hygiene, the bacteria in the cells, in the soil, or on the vegetables we might pull out of the soil, or even on our fingers or in our mouths might provide the little bit of B12 that we need. Well, if that was ever true, it's certainly not true today. Modern hygiene has made that go away. So you should take a B12 supplement. It's easy to find. All you need is 2.4 micrograms a day. Every pharmacy, every health food store, larger grocery stores, they all sell vitamin B12 with the vitamin supplements. Pick up the smallest one you can find and take it every day. So a healthy diet, fruits, grains, legumes, and vegetables. Now, how do I start a diet like this? Many people imagine that if they're following a healthy diet, that it's a big change. It will mean learning some new tastes. Well, maybe. But in our clinic here, and in all our research studies, we use a simple two-step system for introducing people to a healthy diet. And I have never seen anyone unable to do it. Step one, take a week. And during that week, check out the possibilities. What I mean is, think about foods that you would eat if you were following a completely plant-based diet. Think about what you might have for breakfast. What would you have for lunch? What would you have for dinner if you were not eating any meat or any dairy products or any eggs? I'm sure you can think of many possibilities, but take a week, think of what the possibilities would be, write them down, and make a list. After 7 days, you'll have a good list. Start out with a piece of paper like this and fill in the items, and you'll have a great list. Now, once you've got your list of foods that you like, take 3 more weeks and put it to the test. A 3-week test drive of this healthy diet will do 2 things. First of all, if you have been on a healthy vegan diet with no animal products at all for 3 weeks, you'll see physical changes. You'll lose weight. If you have diabetes, your blood sugar will be improving. Your blood pressure is probably getting better. Your cholesterol is better. Your digestion is better. Physically, your body is changing. But something else is changing too. And that's your attitudes about foods. You're discovering that you don't really miss meat the way you thought you might. And you're discovering many foods that you're really enjoying. So take 1 week to check out the possibilities. That's 7 days just to make your food list. Then take 3 more weeks to put that list of foods to the test. Make it all vegan all the time for 21 days, and you'll be sold. I want to stop at that point, but I want to say this. I am very grateful to you for allowing me to share this time with you. But there's something even more important, and that's to recognize that the people who need this message the most are not here. The people who need this message the most might be only 12 years old or 14 years old. They are learning tastes for foods that might hurt them over time. Children nowadays grow up on Western type of foods with meat, dairy products, fried foods, sugar, and they're at risk for gaining weight, for developing diabetes, and for dying prematurely of heart disease or cancer or other problems. Along the way, a Western diet can lead to a higher risk of many other concerns, like Alzheimer's disease and other conditions that tear families apart. So it's important that we first learn a healthy diet ourselves. But then we have to go further, and we have to share this information with others. Here in our clinic, we share it with our patients. But we also ask their families to come in, and we share it with them. We share it with the news media, and we ask everyone to share it with others they know. If we do that together, we can make diabetes rates go down, heart disease rates go down, cancer rates go down, and many other conditions can improve, and we can save lives and prevent illnesses in many, many, many people. Will you do that with me? I want to now simply say a huge thank you to the organizers of this conference, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your conference, and I greatly appreciate your including me in it. Thank you very much.